Hello creative friends, I'm Anastasia and welcome back to my channel. It's finally time to put up Christmas trees for this holiday season, so I have 5 easy and beautiful DIY ornaments to share with you. I'll show you how to create unique and eye-catching ornaments, as well as upcycle your old baubles into fresh pieces that fit your style and bring new life to what you already own. You definitely won't believe that these are the same ornaments as when we started. Let's go. I found these wooden curtain rings at Goodwill for $1.99, and I knew these had potential for ornaments because they already have the loop at the top. This project will also work with wooden craft rings. They won't have the hook already, but you can add one or just tie your ribbon directly to the ring. When I was visiting Tennessee, I found some trees that made these teeny, adorable little pine cones, and I picked up a bag of them for crafting. But you can also purchase these online and from some craft stores. I thought these wood rings would be perfect for miniature wreaths. There are so many options, but I decided to make a pinecone wreath because I love the look of a full-sized one, just like this one from Pottery Barn. So I'm using hot glue to attach them, and I'm making sure there's not a ton of space between each pine cone. Some of these are on the bigger side and some are a little smaller, so I'm strategically placing the different sizes wherever they fill the gap best. This is how it's looking now that I have the front face of the ring covered, but you can see on the side here that it looks really messy and the hot glue is very visible. So I'm going to pop on another row of pine cones facing outwards a little bit, just so that it cleans up that side and the hot glue doesn't show. This is definitely a trust the process project because you really just have to keep putting more and more pine cones on there before it starts to become a nice rounded shape. You can see here on the left side, there is that messy look, and then on the right side, it looks nice and clean and the glue is not showing, and that also helps really round out the wreath overall. This gorgeous ribbon makes this feel really special. This is my favorite thing that I've bought for Christmas this year, so I'll link it in the description so you can also grab some. This might just be the most adorable thing I've ever created. I never knew I needed mini pine cones on a mini wreath before in my life, but I'm so glad that I have it now. For several of these DIYs today, I'll need some plastic ornaments, so I grabbed these from the thrift store for $4. We'll be making a fabric ornament, and for this you can use any fabric that you want. I'll be using 2 neutral pillowcases that I thrifted. I got this idea from Ken and Casa on Pinterest and thought it would be a cute way to add some cottage charm to my tree. First, lay out your fabric and roll your ornament along it to determine how long your fabric needs to be to go all the way around the ornament. Then I will be cutting some strips of the fabric that are about 1/2 inch in width. The number of strips you need will depend on the size of your ornament and how thick you cut them, so make sure you have enough fabric just in case you need to cut a few extra. Mod Podge is our best friend for this DIY, so make sure you have plenty of it. Make sure to put a generous layer along the ornament where you'll place your fabric, then wrap your fabric strip from one side of the ornament all the way around to the other side. The easiest way to do this is to put your line of Mod Podge onto one side of the ornament and then place your fabric strip going towards the very bottom of the ornament. Then once you see where that second half of the fabric is going to lay, you can then place your Mod Podge in that area. Make sure to smooth out as many bumps as you can along the way, and make sure you're coating that fabric really well with the Mod Podge. This is going to make sure that your fabric does not go anywhere and it will end up drying and giving the fabric a very hard plastic feel, so it will last a long time. Once you've made your way around the ornament enough times that there are no more empty spots, give the entire thing a good coat of Mod Podge. And don't worry, this will dry completely clear. The trickiest part of this is to manage the area around the whole of the ornament because the fabric becomes really thick there. Just push that fabric towards the hole at the top as much as you can, then allow it to dry overnight. I sprayed all the caps gold with this metallic champagne bronze spray paint. The next day, you will see that this has dried as hard as plastic, so now we've just got to deal with this top part, which is honestly the only slightly tricky part about this ornament. The fabric can be cut as long as you have a very sharp knife. Carefully cut through that fabric until you can reattach the top of your ornament. If you have one of these ornament tops that can be expanded, that will allow you to get that around the fabric, but I was actually able to cut down my fabric enough to put the original caps back on. I love how the color of this ribbon really makes this ornament pop, and I love how it adds a bit of pattern and cottage charm to my tree. I got the idea from the grit and polish to create these paper bauble ornaments. For this, you'll need some paper that you like. These scrap pads with lots of different options are very easy to find at Walmart, Hobby Lobby, Amazon, places like that. I recently saw a bunch of them at Hobby Lobby, or if you hoard craft supplies like me, then you probably already have some. First, we need to cut these papers into 9 strips that are a 1/2 inch by 10 inches long. Then I'm cutting a 10-inch piece of this gold 20 gauge wire. Next, use that wire to poke a hole in both ends of the paper strip and in the middle. Next, grab some beads that make you happy to put on the bottom of the ornament. I'm starting with a small wood bead and I'm cinching that down on the bottom of the wire first. Then I'm adding my bigger bead right on top of that bead. I'm starting to stack my paper strips, so I'm threading that wire through the middle hole, making sure that the pattern side of the paper is facing the beads. I decided to use 2 different papers for this bauble, so I'm making sure to thread them in the pattern that I want them to have in the end. Now that all of the papers are threaded onto the wire, grab the bottom strip of the fabric and thread that through the wire. Then continue taking the bottom strip of fabric and thread it onto the wire, going in a clockwise direction until you're all done. Now the bauble is really taking shape, so I'm cinching that off by creating a loop with the wire and twisting it around to secure it. I just really love how this ribbon brings out all the colors of this ornament so beautifully. For this DIY, I'll be adding a toile pattern onto my ornament with these beautiful paper napkins that I ordered on Amazon. First, I'm priming my ornament with this Rust-Oleum Universal Bonding Primer. This may not have been necessary because I think my acrylic paint will stick fine to the plastic, but I just wanted to make sure. Then I'm using this warm white acrylic paint over the entire thing. While that's drying, I'm preparing my paper napkins by removing the second layer. Then I'm going to go ahead and cut out some of these individual flowers. I'm applying some Mod Podge and then I'm just sticking that pattern right on there. Since it's a rounded ornament, it's a little bit tricky to avoid creasing the pattern. This section was a little big, so it would be easier to manage smaller sections. You could also use the Mod Podge to help just smooth everything out as you go, and make sure that you are coating it in Mod Podge really well. I prefer to do the larger sections first, and then once most of it is covered, I will then cut out tiny little flowers to fill in the gaps. To give it a shiny glass-like appearance, I'm using this triple thick clear glaze. If you have an ornament that has a design on it that you like, but you don't like the color, this is a great technique. I'm using hot glue to trace these lines, which will turn this pattern into a texture rather than just a print. I actually don't mind this design at all because it's plaid, which goes very well with Christmas, and it's also a trending pattern this year for Christmas decor. If you only have plain ornaments or you don't have any with a pattern that you do like, you can use a marker or a stencil to create your own design. Now that my hot glue is dry, I'm moving on to painting. I'm using this warm eucalyptus color by Sherwin-Williams, and I'm mixing it with some baking soda to give it some texture. I'm really liking the texture this was adding, but this color was just not working for me on this piece. So I also tried painting it a light beige color, but for some reason that just wasn't working for me either. Since I already had some good texture going on, I decided to then spray paint it in this matte coffee bean color, which I ended up liking a lot more. Next, I'm going to add some European Gold Rub and Buff. And I'm just taking my finger to add this along just the high points. So all of those ridges that I created with the hot glue will get a bit of rub and buff on them. Now I'm giving it a top coat of this matte clear spray. These winter daylight hours are really affecting my DIY time because it's only 5:15 and it is pitch black outside already, so please excuse the flashlight. This is truly a unique ornament, and I just love how the rub and buff makes that pattern pop. I think this technique would look so good on many different hot glue patterns, so I'm excited to one day try this out on some other decor pieces. I hope these DIYs inspired you to create your own unique Christmas ornaments to add to your tree this year. Let me know which ones you plan to try. Thank you all so much for watching. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to all of you. Bye guys.